Brothers do not fare well in the Bible. This has been observed by anybody who reads the Torah and realizes that sibling rivalry and competition between brothers and sisters is something that is as old as humanity. It began with Cain and Abel, when Cain kills Abel. You remember the story of Isaac and Ishmael, who Abraham and Sarah have their way with and separate the two brothers. They, by the way, never speak with each other after they split. They come together for Abraham's funeral, but there's no conversation between those brothers. Isaac gives birth to Jacob. Jacob and Esau, those brothers also have a contentious kind of a relationship, and when they do come together, at least according to the Midrash, there is a meeting and an embrace which the Midrash seems to feel is not truly heartfelt, and portrays that meeting as being almost a fight between the brothers, even at that point. And so with all of that as the background, now we have Joseph and his brothers. What I find interesting about Joseph and his brothers in this week's Torah portion, Vayigash, is the way that Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. After the long story of Joseph being sold into slavery to the Midianites by his brothers, and then after he is sold to in Egypt, he ultimately comes to become the second in command. And finally, in this week's parashah, the brothers who initially sold him are standing in front of him, and he wants to reveal himself to his brothers. And so he clears the court. His brothers are standing before him, and Joseph says, "It is I, your brother, standing here before you." Joseph knows that his brothers, when they find out that it is him, will be nervous. Why would they be nervous? Because after all, they took him, threw him into a pit, and then later sold him into slavery, and he would be angry at them. And Joseph says, no, he says, by the way, I'm not angry anymore. And he says, it must have been God's plan for you to sell me into slavery, for me to come to Egypt as I did, because otherwise I would not be here. There is something about that meeting and that particular explanation that rubs me the wrong way. I would put that under the category of when two people bury the hatchet, one of them never forgets where they buried it. This is a case of Joseph who remembers what his brother has done and tries to make what I think is somewhat of an excuse, but doesn't forget the brothers had wronged him. It seems to me, as we live our lives and establish relations with brothers, sisters, and people that are very close to us, sometimes they're going to do things that annoy us. What I learned from the stories of the Torah, certainly in the book of Genesis, is that our ancestors held on to these rifts and these family arguments as long as they lived. And in this case, I have to say we need to learn a different message. If we are going to get along with our brothers and sisters, whether biological or simply brothers and sisters by proximity, we need to find a way not just to forgive, but to let go the hurt and the pain. Because in mentioning that pain and in mentioning what has happened in the past, we keep it alive. And so maybe that's the best message to take from this encounter between Joseph and his brothers. Sometimes it's best not to mention and to let things lie where they are. Shabbat Shalom.